Hello, everybody. Good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Mwalimu, proceed.
Sorry for that interruption. I request that we start afresh. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's training. Our topic today is developing HR Scorecard. And this scorecard comes at a time when there is a realization that human capital is one of the key ingredients of organizational success. It is used as a tool of achieving organizational strategies through human resource management. Human resource managers today have become strategic partners in our organizations. And for that reason, human resource managers have to formulate strategies that are aligned to the corporate strategies. And this is related to the skills, the knowledge, the experience, and the innate talents that our employees have, which we can utilize for one, service delivery, two, attaining a competitive advantage, and three, achieving corporate objectives. And for that reason, HR managers sit at the strategic level of organizations because that is where we belong. The HR scorecard is derived from Norton and Kaplan's model called the balance scorecard. This balance scorecard has 4 parameters. And for those of us who have implemented this tool, I believe this will be an opportunity for us to refresh our minds on how we can utilize this tool to improve the performance of the HR function. I would expect that we make this training as interesting as possible and as well as memorable. And how do we do that? Through one, participation. I will invite all of us to participate in this training as much as you can by sharing your experiences. I will be asking questions at random as part of the participation so that we can benefit from the experiences we all have. Secondly, this is also an opportunity for us to tell stories about what we do in relation to human resource management, and in particular, how we measure our performance as HR managers. So those stories will go a long way in making this training interesting. And then number 3, if you have a joke to tell, I will always be happy to share with us so that it makes this training enjoyable. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Developing HR Scorecard. I want us to move to the next slide, which is the scope of the topic. And in my bag of topics or subtopics to be covered in this training today is the concept of the scorecard. What is a scorecard? I will mention it shortly. Secondly, we shall look at the various types of scorecards, which will include human resource scorecard. There are about 4 or 5, which I will mention. Thirdly, we shall look at the objectives or the importance of HR Scorecard at the departmental and organizational levels. Those of us who have already developed their personal scorecards, they can also share their experiences. The next subtopic is the process of developing a HR scorecard. And this is very important because it speaks to our topic, the topic of developing a HR scorecard. So we shall look at the whole process of how and the motions of developing this scorecard. And then there is the HR scorecard KPIs. These are key performance indicators that will tell us whether we are improving, stagnating, or declining with respect to the various targets that we have. And then second last is the HR strategy map, where we are thinking about how human resource strategies can be aligned with the corporate strategies of our organizations. And this is very important because, as I have mentioned, we are the custodians of HR strategies, and we should be able to formulate strategies that help our organizations to achieve their strategic objectives. And then lastly, we live in an agile and dynamic environment. There are emerging trends. So we shall look at the emerging trends in addressing the topic of HR scorecard. I believe these 7 topics or subtopics are not very ambitious, but we shall try our best within the time limits to ensure that we cover all of them. I will move that we go to the next, which is the concept of a scorecard. What is this that we call a scorecard? And as you can see from the slide, this is as a tool of monitoring performance, particularly in human resource management. I will be addressing myself to the various functions of HR managers and identify various areas that could be measured, and using KPIs, we are able to monitor performance of this HR function. So it is a strategic tool that is used to measure and track the progress of the HR functions. Another way of looking at it, that it is a way of evaluating how well an organization is performing with respect to its corporate objectives. These objectives can either be short-term, medium-term, or long-term. We shall look at these objectives from the lens of HR management. And that takes us to the next aspect, that is the types of scorecards. The one that I've mentioned was developed by Kaplan and Norton, which is the balanced scorecard. It tries to address key and core areas of an organization, which, if addressed well, can achieve a competitive advantage or make an organization to grow. And there are 4 perspectives. Just to highlight a few, I will be mentioning them a bit later as we move on. The first one is the financial perspective. We all know that the bottom line of an organization basically is about money. That without this component, we are not able to operate effectively, we are not able to grow, or even compete in the market for those of us who are in the private sector. So there are various aspects that should be measured under financial perspective, some of which I've mentioned there, like revenue growth, that we need to grow our revenues, the streams of revenues that we have, that as HR managers, we need to assist or help our organizations to generate these revenues. How we do this is through the skills, the knowledge, the experience, and the talents that we have, which we shall look at shortly when we shall look at the HR balance scorecard. And then there's the element of profitability. For those of us in private sector, we talk of profits, that after subtracting all the expenses, we remain with some money that we can call profit. So we need to look at profit as one of the key aspects of measuring the performance of HR managers. And as we shall look at this is whether we are innovative as HR managers, or we encourage innovations so that we develop products that can generate profits for an organization. And then the last element under the financial aspect is the cost control. Especially now, we are living in hard economic times. HR managers should also be cognizant of the fact that operational costs are high and finances are hard to come by. And therefore, we look for ways of reducing our operational expenses from a HR perspective. So if one of the targets as HR managers is to optimize cost, maybe by 10 or 20%, then we should engage in initiatives that help us to reduce the costs related to HR, whether it's in terms of training, in terms of recruitment, in terms of performance management, health and safety, or employee relations. These are areas that we can think of in terms of cutting costs. The second perspective of the balance scorecard is the customer aspect. Customers are the people who keep us in business. Without them, two things will happen. One, we shall never get money for our operational expenses. And two, we die as an organization. Those of us who have individual businesses, I know you know what it means to have those loyal customers. So under this perspective, the focus is on satisfaction. That is how happy our customers are with the services or products that we offer. A satisfied customer is likely to bring value to the organization. One, they are likely to buy frequently from us. Two, they are likely to refer other customers. And three, they are likely to contribute their ideas and opinions on ways in which we can improve our organizations. So customer satisfaction is a key measure of how well as organizations we are doing. Then the other one is loyalty. Loyal customers are those who are committed and are willing to continuously buy from our organizations. So again, loyalty cannot be downplayed because it is very important, and we can develop tools to measure the loyalty of our customers. And then lastly, under the customer perspective, is market share. Market share is said to be the percentage of the total market that is owned by an organization. If your organization is in a competitive environment, the higher the market share, the better you are, because more customers mean more revenues and more profits. So the market share can be measured in terms of the total market that is owned by an organization in percentage. An organization is happy when the total market share is over 50%. Because if you are many in this market, it means that you take the lion's share of this market. And therefore, you will not be straining when it comes to revenues or even expansion of your business. A favorable market share could be anything between 50 and even 70 or 80%. As you approach 100%, then it means that you become a monopoly. And very few organizations are a monopoly in this country, probably government services, which are difficult to find anywhere else. And then the third aspect under the balance scorecard is the internal processes. This refers to the operations that we engage in or the activities that as HR managers are involved in so that we produce the desired results. There are many activities associated with internal processes, particularly those in HR. One is recruitment, which is a process. Two is training, it is a process. Three is performance appraisal and management, which is a process. Discipline and disciplinary measures, they all fall under processes. So as HR managers, our performance shall be measured in terms of our efficiency. What do we mean by efficiency? It is the resources that we use to produce the desired results. The more the resources we use to produce results, the more inefficient we are. It is expected that HR managers optimize the resources so as to achieve high levels of efficiency. Compared to effectiveness, which is production of results. We want results like high profits, revenues, and even organizational growth. So through efficiency, we are able to grow our organizations or make money for our organizations. So another internal aspect that we are going to measure through this process is the quality. Quality refers to the standards that we set for ourselves, either in terms of goods and services or in terms of processes. So the process that we engage in, for example, recruitment, must be quality oriented so that the end result of this process is engaging a qualified employee who can produce the goods and services that we desire. So a quality employee through the process of recruitment and selection is the one who has the right mix of skills, knowledge, experience, and talents, which I have called the human capital. And then the last aspect and the internal process is innovation. Innovation is very key in any function, be it finance, marketing, or HR, now that we speak of HR. It's about developing new ways of doing things, new processes, new systems. So if our internal processes are innovative, then we are likely to cut on cost, improve on our efficiency, and also ensure customer satisfaction. For example, a long process like performance management could discourage and can become very expensive. But if we innovate and shorten the process, then we are likely to be successful. So we measure our internal processes in HR through these three key aspects, that is internal efficiency, quality, and innovation. The last aspect is learning and growth. Learning is about acquisition of new skills or knowledge, and then growth is expansion expansion or enhancement of either products or our knowledge base. So through the learning and growth, we are able to track employee development. And by employee development, we mean continuous acquisition of skills, knowledge, and new experiences, as well as attitudes. Because as we are all aware, attitude determines most of the things or the success of what we do. So employee development is acquisition, continuous acquisition of skills and knowledge. It's a never-ending and an ongoing process. And we can develop employees in various ways. One, through delegation. When we delegate duties, employees learn how to do them. Two, through training. That training helps employees to acquire skills and knowledge. Three, through promotion. As we shall see later, one of the key measures or scorecards of training is the rate at which employees are promoted. So employee promotion is part of employee development. And then there are the skills. These are the technical competences that employees must have in order to perform their duties effectively. We acquire skills in various ways. One, through experience. Two, through training. Three, through discussions and brainstorming sessions. Mostly skills are acquired through formal training. So as a measure of learning and growth, we shall look at one, the level of utilization of the current skills and knowledge that people have. And two, the completion rates of our training and the development programs so that our money does not go to waste. And then lastly, under learning and growth is organizational knowledge. This is the total knowledge base that organizations have. And we look at this knowledge base in terms of one, the human capital that we have in this organization. Two, the quality of this human capital. And three, what is our knowledge reservoirs that we have? Because in terms of organizational knowledge, we are looking at two things. One, the tacit knowledge, which people or individuals have in their heads or minds. Tacit knowledge that is owned by individuals. That when they live with this knowledge. And then secondly, there is what they call explicit knowledge. This is stored knowledge. The stored knowledge is in the form of policies, manuals, handbooks, or any other database that we have in our human resource information systems. So when we talk of learning and growth, we look at our knowledge reservoirs and how we utilize this knowledge either to innovate or provide services to our customers or improve our processes. So ladies and gentlemen, those are the four perspectives of the Balanced Scorecard as developed by Norton and Kaplan. I want to move to the next one, that is the second scorecard, which is the Sales Scorecard. Many of us could be worried about our sales. And the sales is
Mwalimu, excuse me.
Yes, please.
Are you going to share the slides?
Yes, we can make arrangements after the training. I'm sure we can make arrangements so that you can get them online through our portal.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So I was saying that many of us are concerned about our sales performance. Why? Because they could be stagnating or even going down. Because our organizations depend on sales, we need to find a way of measuring our performance in terms of the goods and services that we are selling to our target customers. So in the sales scorecard, we are measuring several things. I've mentioned 4 there, as you can see. One is the sales targets. That for those of us who have done sales before, like myself, you are given sales targets either weekly or monthly. And this sales is what can be used to pay our employees, especially those working on commission. We can develop KPIs around sales targets so that at the end of a period, we are able to measure how well we are doing in those targets. Probably it could be increasing targets that are sales by 20%. So if we are to increase sales by 20%, what does that imply to our HR manager? One, we need to recruit people with the right skills and knowledge to get those targets. 2, we need to train the employees on sales management and how they can attain their targets. And 3, we need to provide them with resources so that the targets are achieved. So one of the measures of the sales scorecard is the sales targets that we set for our employees. Probably many of us may not be directly engaged with the salespeople, but we get this data from the marketing department or those in charge of operations so that we can gauge whether employees in various departments are achieving their targets. Secondly is the conversion rate. That is the speed at which we convert potential customers into actual customers. Because it is one thing to make a sale or make a sales proposition to a potential customer, and is another to convert that customer into a buyer. So we need to convert the potential customers into buyers. The higher the conversion rates, the better for us, because that means revenues and profits. Thirdly is the customer acquisition. If you look at the customer perspective under the balance scorecard, we will be looking at customer satisfaction. You cannot acquire a customer unless they are satisfied. So what can we do to make our customers satisfied so that we can acquire them? One, we can give them incentives. 2, allow them to participate in decision making. Or 3, engage them in acquiring new customers, especially for those existing customers if they are happy. So customer satisfaction is a kind of index that we use to measure the degree to which our customers are happy with our services or the goods that we offer. And lastly is the sales team, that in the majority of cases, salespeople work as a team. And we look at their overall productivity in terms of what they are brought in terms of sales or checks that they bring at the end of the week or at the end of the month. So ladies and gentlemen, that is the second scorecard that we are concerned with. And now we move to the fourth one before we finish with what we are doing today. And the third one now is the project scorecard. I want to look at the HR functions or activities from a project perspective. For example, training can be looked at as a project. A project has various characteristics. One, it has a specific beginning and end time. Training has a specific beginning and end time because training does not go on forever. Performance appraisal is a project because it has a beginning and an end. The second aspect of a project is a budget. That in training, we have a budget. In performance appraisal, we have a budget. Or in recruitment, we have a budget. So if we look at project management scorecard, we look at the aspect of budget. The other one is the schedule, the timelines. Everything we do as HR managers have timelines. Timeline for disciplinary process, timeline for performance appraisal, timeline for salary surveys, timelines for recruitment, and the other activities that we engage in. And that is why I'm bringing in the concept of project scorecard, because we are project managers in our own right. So what are the aspects that we are measuring in this project scorecard? One are the project milestones. These are deliverables that we achieve over a given period of time. If, for example, we are looking at training, one of the milestones is to train probably 20% of our employees in the department. So once we achieve that 20%, it becomes a milestone because it's measurable. Secondly is the cost. How much do we spend in the various activities in our HR function? As I indicated earlier, cost is one of the key components that is of great concern to a HR manager. Because we have been labeled as cost centers because we consume financial resources. It has come a time where we need to reduce our costs and contribute to revenues as HR managers so that we can also contribute to the overall strategy of an organization, that is cost optimization. So we measure costs in all the activities that we do. Second last is the quality aspect. Quality are the standards, like I mentioned, standards that we need to achieve in our processes, in our services, and in our products. So the quality can be measured in many ways. One is the timeliness of our services. If we don't keep our customers waiting and we provide them with the services that they require, then we shall have achieved quality. The other aspect of quality is the contentment of our customers. How happy are our customers with what we provide them or what we are selling. So if they are satisfied with what we offer, then that is a measure of our quality. And we can do a customer survey to find out the level to which they are satisfied with what we do. Then lastly is the budget. This is the amount of money we allocate to the various activities. Especially a time like now, we are operating probably on a string budget. We cannot afford to over budget because of the revenues and the resources allocated to us, or bust our budgets. So we must operate within our budgets. And that is why we say that we need to live within our means. However, the question is, you might want to live within your means, and yet you affect the performance of your organization. And that's why sometimes we go for supplementary budgets, even at organizational level, to fund various activities where we run short of this money. And again, we know that our environment is dynamic. The cost of goods and services are going up. So whatever we may have budgeted for may change with time, and we request for more money. There's no crime in requesting for more money as long as it's done within good time. So that's the third aspect, or the third scorecard related to projects. And then lastly is our scorecard now as HR managers. We shall give a lot of weight on this scorecard. But again, we don't want to forget the other scorecards because they are also important to us. So in our scorecard, we are looking at how we can assess or measure the effectiveness of our activities and how well they are aligned with the corporate objectives. So this scorecard will help us to track the performance of the various HR activities and functions, so that based on these results that we get, or the metrics, we are able to, one, make informed decisions based on data, and two, improve areas where we feel that we are not performing well. And that is why we use various KPIs as metrics for measuring these various functions of HR. The first function there is recruitment and selection. This is derived from the human resource plan. I will be showing us the various scorecards that we shall be using, starting with human resource plan, where recruitment and selection is derived from. So in recruitment and selection, we shall be looking at various metrics, such as the time we take to hire people, to the cost, how much does it cost to hire one person if there was a vacancy, and if there were many vacancies, how much does it cost to fill those vacant positions within a given time. And three, another aspect of measurement in recruitment is the quality of our recruitment. What kind of people do we hire at the end of this process? They must be of high quality because that is the ultimate goal of recruitment and selection, hiring quality people. And the last aspect that we shall look at in recruitment is the retention rate, that we can hire the best talent, but they leave soon after. So we need to find out the people, whether the people we hired actually remained with the organization for a long time. However, there are other environmental dynamics that we shall be talking about, especially with regard to Gen Zs, because as we might all be aware, these are a generation of people who may not want to stay in an organization from 8 to 5 and for a long time. They may want to move to other organizations. But that does not prevent us from hiring the best out of them, even if it means giving them gigs, that is project-based assignments, and we pay them for that. Secondly is employee retention, as opposed to employee turnover, that these are the people who remained in an organization for a long time. And we can look at retention in terms of the number who are left over the average number who are remaining. You multiply that by 100, you get that retention rate. I will talk about it as we move on in this program. Thirdly is the training and development effectiveness. That it is important to evaluate the effectiveness of our programs that we attend to acquire new skills and knowledge, or where we send our employees. That first and foremost, the main purpose of training and development is to bridge a performance gap. And this gap can be demonstrated by, one, wastage of resources or time. Two, failure to meet targets. Three, experiencing difficulties in performing a task. Or four, emergence of a new technology that people are not aware about, especially now that we are talking about cybersecurity or big data. How many of our employees have these skills? So at the end of this process, we want to find out the results that employees are producing to bridge the performance gap for which the training intervention was developed. The other aspect that we shall look at is employee performance management. That by and large, the output of employees in terms of results or their behaviors towards internal and external customers will help us to achieve our objectives as HR managers and by extension, the whole organization. So we shall be measuring employee performance through performance appraisals. And these performance appraisals make use of the various KPIs or targets that we set for ourselves. And this can be done either weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annually, depending on your performance appraisal cycle. So employee performance can be measured in terms of, one, the quality of goods they are producing. Two, the revenues they are generating. Three, the reduction of cost. You remember we mentioned the financial aspect, the cost reduction. Because if we are entrusted with resources to perform a task, it is incumbent upon us to ensure that those resources are used optimally. So resource utilization is part of the performance measurement in the HR scorecard. And then there is the aspect of compensation and benefits. We pay employees. That is compensation for what they do. And we give them benefits. Over and above what they do, we give them incentives. So in terms of compensation, what is the scorecard here? One is the level of compensation. How much are we spending or what is the total spend on employee compensation? Two, how competitive is our compensation system? Because as we all know, below the market compensation may lead to employee turnover or poor performance of employees because of discouragement and demotivation. And then the types of benefits that we give. Probably the compensation might be lower than the market rate, but we enhance our benefits. The benefits that we give to our employees, like medical cover, education for our children, or meals, or in some cases, vouchers, can help to retain employees. And this is part of the measurement that we are talking about. The other aspect that can be measured in compensation is the turnover rate. How many people have left because of compensation? And we can do that by conducting exit interviews if they work for us. For some organizations, it's just a formality, but for others, they take this to be very serious because it gives them insights on what aspects may have led to their exits. And lastly is employee relations. This is the relationship between employees and employers, which is expected to be cordial or harmonious in nature. Harmony. So how do we measure our employee relations as a scorecard? One, the number of complaints that we have from our employees. Two, the number of disputes that we handle. And three, the downtime, especially in cases where there is a union and the employees have gone on strike. A strike is a form of downtime because we are not delivering services as expected. So our focus shall be on this fourth aspect, which is the HR scorecard. And that is the reason we are here this morning to address this key concept, which is at the heart of human resource managers. So ladies and gentlemen, that is the first part of my presentation on the overview of the human resource scorecard, where I have focused on two key aspects. One, the concept of a scorecard. And I want to invite questions or comments so that we can move to the next part. Any question or comment? The floor is open now. Hello? If you can hear me or anybody can start.
No question from me, Mwalimu. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Otuoma, if you are there, you can ask your question or make a comment. Looks like Otuoma is not there. Hannah, if you can hear me, comment or anything else that you want to know about what I've said. Okay, apparently there is no comment or no question. My assumption is that we are doing very well. And therefore, I propose that we move to the next part. And this is the next part that we are looking at. Objectives of HR Scorecard. We are not focusing on HR Scorecard for fun because there are a wide range of benefits that we derive from developing this scorecard, particularly for the HR managers and their departments, and in general, the organization. That once we get it right in the HR department, we are likely to get it right even at the corporate level. So the objective or the benefits of developing a scorecard is one, align HR functions with organizational strategy. As I indicated at the beginning of this program, that HR managers are strategic partners. What does it mean to be a strategic partner? It means that, one, you contribute to the overall strategy of the organization. Two, you identify opportunities in which the organization can invest. Three, ensure that the organization maintains or improves its competitive position in the market. And three, we formulate strategies that we will help our organizations to grow or sustain the business. So in terms of aligning our activities with organizational strategies, we look at the initiatives that HR managers engage in to achieve the corporate strategies. These initiatives are related to the various functions like recruitment, training, performance management, as well as compensation, which are tied to the mission, vision, and the corporate objectives of our organizations. So it is our responsibility as HR managers to look at the performance of our function vis-a-vis the overall corporate strategy. And it is imperative for us to ensure that we do the right things in the right way, at the right time, and at the right places. For starters, when we talk of recruitment and selection, we derive this activity from the corporate strategy. For instance, if the strategy of an organization is to expand its network to other areas, either locally or internationally, that implies that there is need for new staff to occupy positions in those branches. And therefore, we engage in initiatives like recruitment and selections to bridge those gaps that arise out of expansion. Or if it is achieving leadership in the market in various ways, like to be a market leader in the production of computers, then if you cascade it down to HR, it means that we must have qualified staff to develop the computers. And if we don't have this staff, then we hire them from outside, or we train the existing ones. So that whatever we do at in our departments is aligned to the organizational strategy. So when we talk of measuring our performance using this scorecard, we are able to determine whether we are in the right direction of achieving those corporate objectives and strategies. Secondly, is to enhance HR accountability. That as HR managers, we are responsible for, one, what we do as individuals, and two, what our departments are doing or achieving. So we need to find out whether what we are doing at the individual and the departmental level can be measured, and if it can be measured, how much does it contribute to the overall organizational performance. So when we measure using this scorecard our performance, we can answer questions related to what we have done. So being accountable means, one, answerable for our performance, and two, being transparent with our activities. And this transparency has to do with giving out the numbers or the measurements in regard to our activities, so that there's nothing to hide. And an accountable person does not hide anything. So based on this data, other departments or senior managers can point out how well we are doing. And we can also build our case for HR function to the top management that we are adding value to the overall performance of the organization. So HR Scorecard helps HR managers to be accountable at the individual and the departmental level with respect to the results that we produce, which are measurable. Thirdly, is to improve our productivity and efficiency. Productivity is what is the results we produce over a given period of time. And efficiency has to do with the resource optimization. So through the scorecard, we are able to measure how well we are performing in those key areas which I mentioned under the HR scorecard, like recruitment and selection, training, performance management, compensation, and others. So productivity scorecard will track how well our processes are streamlined to ensure that we don't incur necessary overheads, and that we deliver results within the timelines, streamlining processes. And then enhancing efficiency is about ensuring that we don't waste the scarce resources that we have. So by measuring the performance of our HR function, we are able to improve. And how do we improve, or on what basis? On the basis of our performance. That if the numbers are low, probably in terms of sales, then we are doing poorly and there's need for improvement. Or if the numbers of people in our talent pipeline are not adequate, meaning that we have not prepared people adequately to occupy higher positions, then it means we are doing poorly. So this metric will help us to improve in that area of talent acquisition, retention, and development. The other objective, there are quite a number of them, is to optimize talent acquisition. Talent acquisition is about obtaining the right people from the internal and external market. By internal market, we mean those people who are ready, willing, and available to occupy higher positions. So we can acquire talent from various departments to occupy higher positions. Or we can acquire talent from outside the organization, especially when we do not have the relevant skills and knowledge. So we get people from outside with the requisite skills and knowledge to deliver the results that we want. And talent acquisition will be done through recruitment and selection. On talent retention, we are talking about keeping people for a while, because it's expensive to lose people once we acquire them. expensive in terms of time, expensive in terms of money, and expensive in terms of loss of customers, especially those who are directly involved with customers. So our initiatives in HR, like hiring, training, and the development of talent, become very key because we can measure how well we are doing in those areas. The other objective is enhance employee engagement and satisfaction. Engagement can be looked at in two ways. One, the degree to which we occupy our employees from morning to evening. That is on a daily basis or weekly or monthly, because we know that there is a possibility that some employees may not have enough work to do, and that becomes a waste. Why? Because this person is not doing enough to utilize his or her skills, knowledge, and experiences. So that's a wasted human resource if we don't give them enough roles and activities to perform, which means that they are under-engaged. The other way of looking at engagement is through the commitment levels that they have to the organization. And allow me to say that one of the ways of measuring employee engagement is the net employee reference to the organization. That means how easy or willing are employees to recommend the organization to others, either to buy or to work with the organization. So we can make employees engaged by way of commitment or by way of occupying them the whole day so that there is no wastage of their skills and knowledge. And for satisfaction is the degree or the level to which employees are happy. Happy with what? All of us can be happy with one, our working environment. That if the working environment is conducive, then we can be happy. That is satisfaction. Two, we can be happy with our jobs. That is the jobs that we were engaged to do. And a job can make us happy if it is challenging enough, if it is rewarding, and if it is interesting. Because some jobs can become boring. And three, we can be satisfied with our compensation and benefits. So whatever we get at the end of the month or a given period of time can make us happy or unhappy. So for us to determine the level of satisfaction and engagement, we will look at the HR scorecard. How well are employees engaged and satisfied? The other objective is data-driven decision-making. We have come to a place where we cannot make decisions without data. Data is what drives our decisions. Whether it is recruitment, we need data. Training, we need data. Performance management, we need data. And we thank developers of technology because today we are not short, we don't have a shortage of data. There's a lot of data around us, either within the organization or outside. This data can be captured in our systems, such as human resource information systems, or ERPs, that is enterprise resource planning. So using this data can help us to make informed decisions. And that helps us to improve our performance as HR departments and also contribute to the overall performance of the organization. So a scorecard is a tool that helps us to gather data and use this data to make decisions. The other objective is to measure the impact of HR activities on the return on investment. That as HR managers, we invest in our employees. There are many ways in which we do this. One, training. Training is an investment. And at the end of this program, we expect that there will be a return. And this return could be financial or non-financial. Two, we invest in our employees through compensation and benefits. We spend money. And the more we spend on compensation, the more we expect that the employees will perform their tasks to expectations and produce results. We also invest in our employees through the working environment. It's quite a lot that we do to make our environment conducive. That's an investment. We investment in the cleanliness of our offices. We invest in the facilities that they use, like offices. We invest in infrastructure and many other areas. So any investment is expected to give us returns, and that is return on investment. So a scorecard can help us to measure our contribution to the organization in terms of financial outcomes, that is in terms of revenues or profits, or two, the cost that we need to reduce or optimize costs, and three, productivity gains. How much have we improved over a period of time, producing significant results? So through a scorecard, like HR, we are able to measure the impact of our initiatives, and that is a return on investment. Another objective is to support talent development and succession planning. I have already mentioned two things about talent. That is one, talent acquisition, two, talent development, and three, talent retention. Speaking of talent development, we are talking about enhancing their skills and their knowledge base, in addition to acquiring or changing their attitudes. So we develop talent through training and development. And for succession, we prepare employees at lower levels to occupy senior positions in the future. So the scorecard that we are talking about here today goes a long way in identifying various talents that we have, enhancing that talent through training, and also identifying those potential candidates or employees eligible for succession. So who are the potential employees? One, those are the high performers. Two, those with the requisite skills and knowledge. And three, people with experience. Those are the ones that we consider for succession. And we prepare succession plans through delegation, through temporary promotions, or assignment of special duties. The second last objective is to promote a positive organizational culture. All our cultures consists of certain core values. And I'll mention maybe 3 values that will form the basis of my comment on this point. One is innovation. That through HR Scorecard, we are able to identify the level of innovation in our organizations. So if your culture is innovation-oriented, therefore we should look for innovative employees, right from recruitment and selection, and then promoting innovation once we recruit them or we hire them through training or developing what they call innovation weeks. Like you can have a whole week of innovation where people can demonstrate their innovations. Secondly, another core value is professionalism. That a professional is somebody who is guided by the professional ethics and code of conduct. That in this code of conduct, we are talking about confidentiality. We are talking about personal growth. We are talking about use of information and others. So we can promote a culture of professionalism through the various initiatives in HR, and we can measure that through the use of HR Scorecard. And the third aspect of culture could be continuous improvement. That you cannot continually or continuously improve unless you ensure that your systems, processes, and policies adapt to the environment. So as we talk of the various HR functions like recruitment, training, performance management, they should adapt to the environment for purposes of continuous improvement. So through a scorecard like ours, we look at the performance of HR. Are we improving or we are stagnating? And lastly, I've already talked about it, it's continuous improvement, that the environment is agile, that we need to make our systems agile, that is able to adapt to the changes in the environment. And as I will mention in my closing slide, there is the element of emerging issues in HR scorecard, and one of which is ensuring that we adapt our systems to changes in our environment. So, ladies and gentlemen, those are the main objectives of HR Scorecard, which, as I have already indicated, go a long way in achieving the corporate objectives and strategies. I want to move to the key concepts that we talk about in HR Scorecard, and there are quite a number of them. I will mention a few. One is the strategic objectives. That there are 2 objectives that we are talking about here. One, they are the corporate objectives. And 2, they are HR objectives, which are strategic in nature. And when you talk of strategic, one, they help us to achieve a competitive advantage. 2, they help us deliver goods and services. And 3, they are long-term in nature. So when you talk of strategic objectives in terms of HR Scorecard, we are looking at how the various HR initiatives can be measured and contribute to the overall organizational objectives. Those are the corporate objectives. And how they can also help the strategic objectives at the HR department level. So the key thing that we want to emphasize here is the level of alignment of the HR strategies with the corporate strategy. The moment you don't achieve alignment, you have a strategic drift, meaning that you deviate from the corporate objectives or the departmental objectives. That means that, one, we are not able to achieve our goals. Two, we are not able to generate revenue. And three, our business becomes unsustainable. And those are the red flags that indicate that we are on the risk zone. As HR managers, we don't wait until we have drifted to a level that we may not reverse. And that is why we need to continually monitor and evaluate our performance so that any drifts can be addressed in time. Secondly, we talk about HR metrics. These are values that we attach to the various activities that we engage in. Measurements. So there are two ways of measuring. One is quantitative measures, which speak to numbers or frequencies. And secondly, another metric is qualitative. These are behavioral measures which cannot be quantified. Our emphasis in the HR scorecard is on the quantitative measurements. And this quantitative measurement, we are talking about finances, going back to our balance scorecard. Two, we talk about numbers, like number of employees who are ready to take over senior positions. Or three, we talk about percentage, which is the rate of turnover, for example, or the rate of retention. These are metrics that we shall be talking about in the next few minutes. And then the other concept, which we will be using in this HR scorecard, is KPIs. We have always done this before, that there is no way we can measure performance without having a KPI, an indicator. This tells us how well we are doing or poorly. And these KPIs are the ones that we measure against the targets. What targets do we give ourselves? And what are the KPIs, the indicators? For example, in recruitment and selection, a key indicator is to reduce the cost of recruitment. Reduce the cost. There is no specific number or metric that we have given. But when you talk of a target, so the target could be based on recruitment, we give a figure. Reduce the cost of recruitment by 20%. That becomes a target. So targets are used to measure KPIs. And that is what we shall be looking at again in the next few minutes. And then perspectives. I have already addressed myself to the various perspectives, that is financial, related to revenues, profit, and cost. Customer, related to customer satisfaction, and market share. Internal processes, related to the quality of our products. Learning and growth, acquisition of skills and knowledge through training. So those are the key concepts that form the basis of our arguments in developing HR Scorecard. Because a score is a measure, a card is like a record. How do we measure and record our performance? Scorecard. Next is continuous improvement, which means that we need to refine our HR practices so that we achieve those corporate objectives. Why do we need to refine them? As you can see from that slide, it's because of the changes in our organization or outside. That yes, we might be having very good HR practices, which are working for us. But because there are changes in the organization, like strategies, management, and systems, we need to refine these processes or practices so that we are aligned at all times. Externally, there are changes that are taking place, like the emergence of new technologies such as AI. So as HR managers, we need to refine our training practices, for example, to include technologies, new technologies like AI. Some people have argued that with the AI, some people are going to lose jobs. And I want to believe that it's not HR managers who are going to lose these jobs, because we shall have refined our systems and practices so that we remain relevant and valuable to our organizations. And one of the ways, as they argue, of ensuring that we do not become obsolete is to make ourselves invaluable or indispensable. And we can only achieve this through refining our HR practices so that at the end of every week, year, or month, we can point out that there is value addition from these HR practices. Next is the accountability, which I mentioned, that we are all responsible for the success of our departments and our organizations. Why? Because we are in charge of the most important asset of an organization, and that is the human resources. And for us to demonstrate our accountabilities, we need to set clear expectations, especially when it comes to performance management, and also ensuring that our initiatives are aligned to the business needs. The business needs, if I may jog our minds, relate to attainment of objectives, and 2, attainment of corporate strategies, and 3, maintaining the image of the organization. And that is what we expect by developing the HR scorecard to ensure that there is accountability. And lastly, as I mentioned, data-driven decision-making, that the other objective is to ensure that we make decisions based on hard data, not on imaginations, not on speculations, and not on personal feelings. It's about data. And through HR Scorecard, we obtain data in the form of KPIs and targets against which we can measure our success. And that will make us make informed decisions with respect to the various HR functions. So ladies and gentlemen, those are the key objectives of human resource scorecard. Then our next subheading is the process of developing the HR scorecard. And this is where the rubber meets the road. Why do I say so? That you can have very innovative systems. You can have wonderful policies, but they don't amount to anything unless you have developed a system of measuring how well you are doing. Because scorecard is about measurement. So if we don't measure in an accurate way our performance, then it becomes difficult for anybody to celebrate the HR department. And that is why we are here today, to design or develop this HR scorecard in a way that helps us to measure our performance and also improve our systems and the decision making. Having said that, these are the steps that are involved in developing this scorecard. As I indicated, there are those key concepts that we were talking about in the previous slide. You can see them there, the key concepts, like strategic objectives, metrics, indicators, perspectives, improvement, accountability, and data-driven decisions. This is what we are focusing on here, but in a systematic manner. Step one, if you want to develop an effective scorecard, is to define your own HR strategy, which could be related to the various activities that you engage in, like recruitment, training and development, and performance management. So your strategy is how you are going to achieve your objectives as a department, which are derived from the corporate strategy. So if the corporate strategy is to increase revenues by 40% in the next 1 year, then as a HR manager, you have to interpret that. What does it mean to increase revenue by 40%? When you cascade it down to our level, it means that we need to look at the cost. We need to look at the revenues. We need to look at the customer satisfaction. All this build onto your strategy. So how do you ensure that you achieve the 40% revenue growth? One, in recruitment, you may need to cut cost. So one of your strategies could be reduce cost by 40%. And you identify areas in which you can cut cost: recruitment, training, performance management, and others. And how can you cut costs? You deploy technology, that instead of doing manual performance appraisals, you adapt technology where you use human resource information systems to appraise people, or any other technological tool that is convenient to you. So by defining strategy, you have a clear picture of, one, where you are, and two, where you are going in terms of recruitment, training, performance management, employee relations, and compensation. So in your strategy, you need to look at aspects like retention, engagement, and productivity. So retention here has to do with keeping employees. So if you don't retain your employees, and going by the example I've given of achieving a revenue of 40%, then it means that you will be spending a lot of money replacing those people who leave. So you look at your retention rate and find a way of reducing turnover. I've talked about engagement. That's the degree to which employees are committed to the organization and occupied the whole day. So your strategy should be on retention, engagement, and productivity. So what are the retention strategies? Training and development, promotion, competitive pay. What are the strategies for engagement? Redesigning the jobs, such as job rotation, job enlargement, and job enrichment. How do you develop, which strategies can you develop for productivity? One, identify clear targets which are achievable. Two, provide adequate resources for people to produce. And three, set realistic targets in terms of time and deliverables. So that is the first step in developing our HR scorecard, defining our own strategy. Secondly, you identify the measurements, that's the metrics, and the objectives you want to achieve over a given period of time. And we use the Kaplan and Norton's model of the balanced scorecard, that is the financial, customer, internal processes, learning, and growth. So the metrics in finance could be revenue, growth, could be the cost, and it could be the return on investment. On customers is the customer retention, how many have you kept? So that becomes the metric. Two, on customer is the market share, how many customers do you have overall in the market? And three, their level of happiness or satisfaction. So when you look at internal processes, is the quality and the cost of operations. How much are we spending in our operations like recruitment? For learning and growth, we are looking at the rate at which, one, employees complete their trainings, and two, the speed at which people grow in the organization through promotion. Then going to step three, setting targets. As I indicated, targets are derived from the key metrics. So you give a specific figure, either in terms of numbers or rate, like percentage, which can tell us how well we are doing. For example, I've given there reduced turnover by 10%. If your turnover rate is very high, and by high, I mean anything between, anything above 15% annually is very high. And that it could be the international standard of turnover, that if you have a turnover of more than 15%, then you are doing poorly. And then the other measure is the level of satisfaction score. And we can have various scores related to satisfaction. And depending on the weighting, that is the emphasis that you want to put on various areas of satisfaction, you can give yourself a score, that a score of 100% or a score of 50, depending on the area you want to emphasize. So if you want to set a measurable target, for example, in training, you look at the satisfaction score. You want to ask the trained employees how happy they were with the training. If the score is low, then it means that the training intervention failed. And if it's high, it succeeded. And you cannot say that it succeeded because employees are happy. There must be results to show for it. So the results are in terms of reduced wastage, increased revenue, increased profits, and cost optimization. And that is the return we mentioned earlier on, and these returns must be measurable. Step 4 is to establish the methods of data collection. There are various scientific methods that you can use, and I'm sure all of us have done research before, either market research or academic research. We can use tools like interviews, questionnaires, or focus groups to help us collect this data. But as I have said, the accuracy of the data will depend on the tool that you have used. For instance, if you use a questionnaire and you have so many open-ended questions, you are likely to have so many opinions which are divergent and therefore might not measure what you intend to measure. And therefore the validity of the questionnaire is lost. So as much as possible, we focus on the quantitative measurements where we can give options from which the respondents can pick the most suitable option. So data collection method is key because we have said HR Scorecard is data-driven, and we can only collect data through the various tools that I have mentioned. Step 5 is to design the framework. And this is what you want to measure. Which areas do you want to focus on? You can use the balance scorecard, like finance, customer, internal growth and processes. But as HR managers, we can directly develop a framework around our activities. That is recruitment and selection, training and development, performance management, as well as compensation and benefits. So this framework will form the structure around which we shall be measuring our performance. And for that reason, we need to identify the key metrics we are going to use to measure the performance. Then step 6 is implementation. Once you have designed the framework, you implement it. What does it mean to implement? 3 things. 1, you assign duties. That for each framework, for example, recruitment, who will be responsible for monitoring this? In training, you'll also look at the same, who will be responsible for that? So that is one aspect of implementation, that is assigning duties or responsibilities. Who will be responsible? That should anything happen, we know where to go. Secondly, as part of the implementation, is to allocate resources. If I take you back to the project scorecard, there are various parameters of a project which I mentioned, and I want to mention 2 of them in relation to implementation. 1 is the resources and 2 is the budget. Budget is how much we have allocated. Resources is what is available for use. And therefore, we allocate adequate resources to the various initiatives like recruitment, training, performance management, so that we can implement this scorecard. And then number last, which is tied to number 7, that is monitoring and evaluating progress. How well are we doing? Monitoring is continuous assessment or data collection. We collect data on what we are doing, how, where, and then we quantify in terms of either finances or timelines. So once we monitor, we are able to identify deviations on time so that we don't firefight at the end of our process. So if it's recruitment we are engaged in, please don't wait until the end of the process. We need to monitor how well we are doing from the time our requisition is made to the time an employee is placed on the job and that he or she starts working. So if your recruitment and selection starts at the point where employees are now placed on the job, you need to monitor the whole process to that end. But if it goes beyond placement, such as probation, because I believe probation is a way of measuring the effectiveness of our recruitment and selection criteria. That is this person doing the right things during probation? If not, then our selection criteria did not work. And that's why we cannot confirm this person. We go back to the I've mentioned of training or recruitment and selection. We monitor. And then review is basically measuring now. Measuring using the metrics that we mentioned in the other slide, in the previous slide. Number 2, identify key metrics. This is where you will use the metrics as you review. So these metrics will help us to identify areas of deviations, areas of success, and areas that need improvement. And then based on our reviews and the results that we get from there, we can make adjustments and improve the scorecard. Adjustments may mean making changes in the way in which we do our business as HR managers. For example, again, I use the recruitment and selection scorecard. If it takes a long time to hire the right person, and the industry standard, depending on the industry, is that you should not take more than 60 days to hire a person, especially in the technological age like today. So if it takes you more than 60 days and you are using technology like ATS, application tracking system, then you should be doing poorly. You make adjustments on how you can bring down the time of recruiting. We know that if it takes a long time to hire a person, several things may happen. One, the potential candidate who is talented may have moved to another organization, so we lose that one. Secondly, we jeopardize our corporate image, that this is an organization that takes its sweet time to hire. And sometimes when we get back to our potential candidates, they start wondering whether they applied for the position because it took a long time. They have even forgotten that they applied for such a position. Some of us get caught by surprise when we get invitations for interviews or appointments. So it speaks to the quality of our processes where we need to make adjustments in and then improve. Improvement is enhancing the initiatives. If it's recruitment, training, and others, we need to improve. And improvement is not a one-time thing. It should be continuous. And then step 9, which perhaps the last one, is communicating the results to stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders in the HR scorecard? One, the other departments who are not engaged in the development of this framework, like finance, marketing, production, operations, ICT, and others. So what does this scorecard say in respect to the framework that we developed? So the stakeholders must be put in the loop so that they know where they are. 2, the managers, probably at a higher level. For instance, the CEO needs to be looped in from the time you are developing this scorecard. Because this scorecard, as we have said, contributes to the strategic objectives of an organization. So the top managers are also key stakeholders to whom you need to communicate the results of the scorecard. So that 1, you are able to showcase how well the department is doing, and 2, the measures you have taken to improve based on step 8, the measures you have taken to improve, so that you are a part of the solution makers, rather the finders of solutions rather than problem makers. So we want to be part of the solution to the problems that organizations are facing. So ladies and gentlemen, those are the 9 steps that you can use to develop the HR scorecard, which will go a long way in 1, demonstrating that as a HR manager, you are on top of your game, and 2, that the department is delivering on its strategic objectives, which are aligned to the corporate strategies. So I want again to ask if there is any question related to this process so that we can move to the next part. Any question or comment that we may have related to the process?
So question in the chat box.
Sorry?
There's a question in the chat box. When it comes to succession planning, do you have any sample templates for the succession planning?
In our reservoirs, we could be having a template. I'm sure Dan has previously shown how you can conduct succession plans. That can be available on the portal or the many posts that Dan does. I'm sure you can find them.
Yes, kindly.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Maureen.
Okay.
Maureen.
Thank you.
Yes, please. Anybody with a question?
Yeah, this is Ben.
Can you put on your volume, please?
Yeah. How is that?
Let me see if it is mine that has a problem. Let me see if I can. I think mine is full. Yes, you can ask.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Now, I will share the template requested by the participant. And anyone else interested in that would be able to find that on our, there is a WhatsApp channel. I'll share the link. That's where we share most of our templates. If that is okay.
Sorry, you're not audible.
Wow, I don't know what could be the problem with my mic. Okay, I'm saying I'm going to share the template requested by the
Okay.
participant on our WhatsApp channel. I'll also share the channel link
Yes.
immediately on the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for the question, and I believe you are guided.
Mwalimu, I would like to ask a question.
Yes, please.
How effective is this process for a one-person HR organization? How then are such organizations supposed to ensure inclusivity and of course getting the right support to achieve the organizational goal?
Thank you very much, Otoma. Allow me to answer that in two ways. One is the team element. That as HR managers, we cannot achieve much by working alone. Even if you are the only one in that department, you need to bring in other people in this process. Meaning that as we develop the scorecard, we need to develop collaboration with other departments for two reasons. One, to obtain insights from them on what they expect from this process. Two, to create ownership of this process, because if you do it alone, then the others are likely to resist. So you want to create ownership through collaboration. Three, you are able to implement it seamlessly because this is what other departments have participated in. So for you to succeed, if you are a one person in your organization, you need to collaborate with other departments by ensuring that you have regular meetings with them, explaining to them what you are doing and how beneficial it is to the organization. And three, communication, communicating the goals, the processes, and the end results, which I've already mentioned, to the people and the stakeholders that I've mentioned. So that is one approach, the team aspect. The other one is to, if you can afford it, bring on board a consultant. There are many benefits of hiring a consultant. One is the industry expertise, which they may have. Two, the objectivity of this process. And three, the expertise that they bring. So based on these two approaches, I guess you are able to develop this scorecard, because I know it is time consuming to do it alone. To hire an external consultant means that, one, you engage your top managers so that they buy in to the aspect of hiring a consultant. And two, you develop a budget for it so that they can do it for you. And three, you engage all the key stakeholders so that they are aware that there is a consultant coming in, the purpose of the consultancy, and what they are expected to do or to give when the consultant is on site. So those are the two ways in which you can approach that instead of dying alone. So I've said two. One is collaborative effort through teamwork with other departments. And two, by hiring an external consultant. So if anybody has another way of addressing it, because I said we are here to share experiences. Please feel welcome. Okay. I hope I've addressed your issue.
Yes, Mwalimu, thank you so much. I'm comprehensively addressed.
Thank you. Any other question that is burning so that we move on because of time? Okay, silence means that we are all contented or happy. Then we move to the next part, and that is an example of a scorecard structure. This first scorecard structure is a form of a table or a matrix that speaks to the various key concepts that we mentioned earlier on related to this scorecard. On the vertical axis, I've used the perspectives based on the balance scorecard, and the horizontal side, I've used the various aspects that will help us to measure performance. If we look at the financial part, the objective there is to reduce operational costs. Just an example. If not to reduce operational costs, is to increase revenue. If not to increase revenue, it could be to enhance profitability. So any objective which is financial in nature can fit here. And then the metric, because I've used the element of cost, reducing of operational cost. So the measurement here, the metric, is to identify HR cost by employee. And there are many areas that we can cost in HR. For example, recruitment. How much does it cost to hire one person? That is cost per employee. Or a second is compensation. How much do we spend per employee? So that becomes a matrix or a KPI. And then from this KPI, we develop a target. Remember, I said that a metric is just an area that we want to measure, like cost, without giving specific figures. And then for target, we give a specific figure, which could be numbers or a percentage. So the percentage I've given there is to reduce the cost per hire by 5%. That becomes our target. So at the end of a year, depending on when you want to evaluate this, you should find out whether you reduced the operational cost by 5%. And then what initiatives do you engage in for you to achieve the 5% reduction? One is to automate the payroll. Or two is to freeze employment. Three, as it is happening in many organizations, freeze training. I'm sure many of us have got the hit in this financial environment where revenues are not easy to come by, and therefore you are forced to cut cost. So you automate as an example of reducing cost by 5%. And what could be your data source? Your human resource information system. And I believe most of our organizations have this system. Secondly, the other perspective is customer. And I mentioned that there are many ways of looking at customer perspective. One is the level of satisfaction, which could be engagement. Two, the number of customers that have been recruited. Three, could be the market share. So any objective related to those key parameters can be an objective. So what metric do we use here is the employee engagement score. So how do we develop this score? It's by developing a tool which is given to customers to gauge their level of engagement or satisfaction with the organization. So you conduct a survey, engagement score. So if this score, depending on the parameter you are measuring, so if the score is to increase employee engagement, then you develop a target, 85% engagement. This is very good, if I may say. But our objective could be ideally, and I say ideally, is 100%, which is quite optimistic. 85% is achievable. And for you to achieve that, the initiative I've given that is recognition programs. What are the kinds of recognition programs do you put in place? I can mention two. One, you can give business, can give you cards for those customers who are repeat purchasers. It could be a Christmas card. It could be a season's card, so that they feel appreciated for buying from us. Secondly, another recognition is to give tokens of appreciation. This can be a training for the customers. For those of us who are in the banking sector, you invite your key customers for trainings which are done for free. So that is a recognition of the importance of customers, which can go a long way in enhancing the customer engagement. And you can do that through employee surveys or customer surveys. If it's employee surveys, you are talking about internal customers. If it is customer survey external, you are talking about external customers. Then next is the internal process, which we said has to do with the operations of an organization, the day-to-day operations. So the objective is to improve those operations, such as recruitment. I've just given one. Another internal process could be performance management and appraisal. Another internal process could be development of the pay slips. Focusing on the recruitment, the metric here is the time. How much time does it take to hire or fill a vacant position? The target, now you give a specific number of days, 30 days. And again, this varies depending on the position you want to fill. Then the initiative, if you want to cut or reduce the number of days, is to use ATS. ATS means application tracking system. It's automated, where you can track the flow of the applications from the time the position was advertised to the time the interviews were conducted. So what can you rely on to get this data is the recruitment data, which I believe we keep all the time. And we keep a report. Usually these reports are in the HR department because we are custodians of HR records. or in our HR information systems. Then number 4 is learning and growth, where we are looking at, in terms of HR, is the acquisition of new skills and knowledge or enhancement of people's positions to a higher level. And that is what I have said as an objective, building leadership pipeline. Do you have the right numbers of employees who can occupy senior positions when the time comes? Then the metric is a percentage of the managers trained, so that that pipeline does not dry. If you want to ensure a steady flow of talented managers, you must ensure that you have a large number of qualified people who can occupy senior positions. So the scorecard will look at 80% of trained managers. This can be scary to many of us. Why scary? Because there are resource implications. That training 80% of managers can be very expensive. But as they say, if you think that training is expensive, try ignorance. You can imagine managers without a clue of what they should do, when, where, and how. That is courting a disaster. So I could go for a conservative figure of 80% of managers who are trained annually, so that you can cater for the exits. Exits through death, natural attrition; 2, resignation; 3, dismissal; and 4, retirement. So again, you should be having a record of the number of people who are retiring now. Now means tomorrow, next week, or this month. Those who are retiring soon and those who will be retiring later. So this will give you a trend of the number of exits that you are likely to have, so that as you train, you know the adequate numbers that you can train to build up that leadership pipeline. And then what is the data source? Is your training records. How many people have been trained? For those of us in public sector, I think there is a policy which says that an employee is entitled to at least 2 trainings per year. I believe that has not changed. You can give them more, but when you train your employees, there are dividends that you are likely to reap from this process. So that is an example of a scorecard using the balanced scorecard by Kaplan and Norton. Now I move to the next scorecard without the perspectives. That is the financial, customer, and others. The one I'm about to show basically focuses on HR functions or activities, because some people find it hard to use the Kaplan and Norton perspective, that is the balanced scorecard, in human resource management. So we develop our own scorecard without using these 4 perspectives. But again, we shall be referring to them in terms of returns on investment or customer satisfaction. So this is the HR scorecard using KPIs. And that is one key result area. Number 1 is HR planning. That this is a forecast of future human resource requirements or needs and how we can meet them. And one of the KPI in HR planning is accuracy. How accurate is our human resource plan? And because it is basically a forecast, we cannot expect 100% accuracy. So a forecast of 90% accuracy, I believe, is good enough, because anything below 90 could be that you are using hit or miss methods. And you can benchmark this with other industry players, that is organizations in the same industry with which you are working. Then the second aspect that or key performance indicator is talent gap analysis. So the talent gap here, we are referring to deficits in terms of two things. One, the competencies, and two, the numbers. So the competencies, if you look at the description, is the skills, the knowledge, and the experience. There's a talent gap. And when you talk of numbers, this is our staff establishment. How many do we have today, and how many do we expect to get in future, considering the number of people who are leaving? So you are able to forecast almost 100% because you know the numbers of people who are leaving, especially through retirement, you know them. It's not something that you are going to guess. So you know how many people are retiring. And if you are doing a HR forecast, you know how many positions you are likely to fill. And then another key KPI on HR planning is succession plan, which one of us have, I think Halima asked that. That is the people we have prepared to occupy higher positions. And again, we don't want to firefight. Succession planning enables us to prepare people adequately so to occupy those higher positions. And we expect a target 100%. This can be achievable because you know the people with potential who can succeed others in succession planning. You know the people who have potential. These are people who have been tested in terms of performance, tested in terms of innovation, tested in terms of leadership. So you can identify those key personnel who can be promoted either now or in the future. Next is recruitment. That is the second aspect of human resource. And as I have indicated before, the KPIs are there. One is the time to hire in terms of days. If you look at the target, you can reduce the number of days from 45 to 30 days, which could be commendable. And the initiative that we said can reduce this is to automate the process. Cost per hire, you can reduce by 10% if it is expensive, especially in these hard economic times. We want to assist our organizations to achieve their bottom lines. So we cannot afford to be expensive in recruiting new people. So we reduce that by 10%. There are areas in which we can reduce. One is the advertisements. Instead of advertising positions in the mainstream media like Nation, you can use online media. You can use online media like social media, which is an emerging method of recruitment. You can use Twitter. You can use WhatsApp. So you can reduce that by 10% through advertisement. Another area of cost reduction could be screening of the applications. Instead of hiring people, which could be a cost, to screen the applications, you use automated systems where you use AI tools that can identify people with the right mix of skills and knowledge who could be eligible for interviews. Another area of cost cutting in HR recruitment could be the interview panelists. That instead of having physical panels, you can have online panels as a way of reducing cost of traveling. Or two, you reduce the numbers of panelists. That instead of having 15 or 10, you can have a maximum of 5. And again, this depends on the area in which you are recruiting. If it's finance, you may have a technical finance officer in this panel and maybe 2 other people. You don't have to have so many people. And then another key KPI is of acceptance rate of the offers. From our experience, I know there are some people who have declined job offers for various reasons. You need to interrogate why these people were offered and declined these jobs. So a 95% target of acceptance rate is quite commendable. And that means that for potential employees to accept the offers, you must have done your homework very well. That 1, the communication was quite on point. 2, the interviews were quite informative and friendly. And 3, the onboarding process was done in the right way. And then another KPI is diversity hiring. That especially today in government, there is a policy of the 1/3 gender rule, that people from different genders should be hired so that there is no imbalance. So that when you do an audit, you don't have audit queries where you have not hired people from certain communities, people from certain genders. And now that we are talking of LGBTQ, though it's not formally here with us, it is something that can be thought about. Why diversity hiring? To ensure that we promote our policy on equal employment opportunities. If you claim that you are an equal opportunity employer, then your recruitment and selection should address the aspect of diversity hiring. Though I am aware that in some places, you may find there are not enough adequately trained locals that can be hired in your organization. But you can put that in your notes during hiring, that you advertised and there were no adequate applicants to fill those vacant positions, instead of saying there was nobody. So the advertisement should go out there to everybody, and those who are eligible can apply. Those who are not eligible can deselect themselves. Deselect, meaning that they don't apply. So that is area number 2, recruitment and selection. Area number 3 is training and development. I've mentioned before, there are 4 key parameters we are using as KPIs. Training hours per employees. How long does it take to train employees? And our target could be 20 hours. This could be an industry standard. Unless you are training a pilot who requires more than 3,000 hours, the industry varies. The effectiveness of training, you can evaluate the effectiveness of the training by using a tool such as a questionnaire, or observing performance or measuring performance during performance appraisals. So it will tell us whether the training helps us to improve or not. Leadership development rate, how fast are our managers developed to occupy senior positions? And again, we give ourselves a target of 80. And again, I'm giving tentative figures here. The reality on your end may be different. So I'm only giving examples. So please don't take this as a rule of thumb, but this will be dictated by your needs and by your standards that you set for yourself. And then another aspect of training, which is a KPI, is skills improvement, where we want to continually enhance the skills of our employees. And 90% skill improvement is good. And how do we achieve this? One, through mentorship and coaching. Two, through delegation. Three, four, through assignment of special duties. And five, working in a team environment where people can learn from each other. So it is possible to achieve 90% improvement rate in terms of skills. Another area is performance management, which is dear to most of us, that we measure the performance of our employees through performance appraisals. And for some organizations, they do not complete the performance reviews. Why? Because of time constraints. Two, because of changes in strategy. Or three, lack of resources. So we need to find out how well we can achieve better results through the scorecard by giving ourselves 100% completion rate. If this is what will determine the success or failure of our department, then all efforts should be directed towards this performance completion. The other KPI is employee performance ratings. And again, you have various ways of measuring your employees. Those of us in public sector, you have 4 ways of evaluating people, though in a descriptive form. One, exceeds expectation. This is anything between 100% to 120. Two, meets expectation. This could be anything between 70 and 90. And below expectation is anything below 50. So depending on your way of measuring this, you can increase your target for each employee, that 90% is the standard that is expected of all the employees. And again, that will depend on a number of factors. One, the training of our employees. Two, the accuracy of the tool that you are using. Three, the clarity of the targets that you want to set. And four, the willingness of the managers to ensure that we implement this. Because we can set targets at 90, and yet the managers are not willing to implement this, or they are busy doing other things. And then goal attainment, because at the beginning of a performance review cycle, you start with your goals, which are attainable, specific, measurable, attainable. So how many people are attaining the goals that you have set? So that will become a measure or a scorecard on how well you are doing in performance management. Compensation and reward is another area in which you can develop a scorecard, and that is competitiveness. There are 3 ways in which you can position yourself in terms of competition. One is above market rate, or at market rate, or 3, below market rate. I will be scared if your organization compensates people below market rates without benefits to level out on the compensation others are getting in the industry. So 10% above market rate could be your target. But again, this depends on your finances. If you don't have adequate finances, probably 5% and other benefits. Bonus and reward, how do you want to position yourself again? You reward your employees, because through these rewards, we enhance their motivation, morale, and satisfaction. A dissatisfied workforce is likely to leave the organization. And that's why we give these incentives in the form of bonuses and rewards. Total compensation is the total amount of money you are spending on all the employees, because we say this is an investment. We expect returns on this investment. The higher the investment, the better, because you will get better returns. So 80% satisfaction rate could, I'm not saying guaranteed, could lead to employee satisfaction and therefore better results when it comes to attainment of strategic objectives. Second last is employee relations. The KPIs are employee satisfaction, employee engagement, and conflict resolution. On employee satisfaction is 80%. As I have said, a dissatisfied workforce is a demotivated workforce and could lead to turnover. Engagement of 85% is a good score. Grievance, because these are complaints. With grievances sometimes might convolute into a conflict. And that is why we need to keep the percentage or the numbers low. And then conflict resolution. These are the differences between managers and employees. And this conflict should be resolved. A 15-day target could be ideal, because, as they said, if a conflict is as a result of an injustice, if you delay to resolve this injustice, then you are denying your employees justice. So justice delayed is justice denied. So conflict resolution, even for your own sake, as HR managers, might lead to strikes if it's not resolved on time. And we want to guard against those strikes, which affect our bottom lines, business operations, as well as our brand in the market. If you can keep conflict at 0 level, you will be doing very well. The last aspect is health and safety, so that we can cover all the aspects related to our HR. The number of accidents, you want to reduce them drastically. If you reduce them by 10% annually, it is possible to achieve a 0 rate accident, 0. Because we know that accidents are expensive in terms of time lost for treatment, money spent for treatment, and also for compensation if the accident occurred because of our own negligence. We also need to train people on health and safety. This is not something that we can negotiate. And as a requirement, is a compliance issue in health and safety. You need to train your employees so that they are aware of the potential causes of illnesses and accidents. And that is covered under the 2 acts of Parliament, that is Work Injuries and Benefits Act, as well as OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Act. I believe we are all guided by those acts, because it's a requirement that we ensure that our workplaces are healthy and safe. Sick leave utilization, there are people who want to utilize their sick leaves even if they are not sick. We need to put in place mechanisms to reduce the number of people who are applying for sick leave. Because a sick leave can range between 1 day to 4 days, and for other organizations, it could be more. When a person is away, that is productivity lost. And if you calculate that in a year, that's a lot that is lost. So we need to ensure that people are not sick so as to reduce the sick leaves. And when it comes to longer sickness, again, it costs the organization, because this person may have to take long leaves where you pay full, probably in the first 3 months or 6, depending on your policy, then half pay, then no pay after that. Then you can consider terminating the contract on account of illness. And again, you need to follow your policy. Wellness participation, employee wellness today is a very key aspect. The well-being of our employees, especially the mental health. We want to ensure that our employees are mentally healthy. Sources from various hospitals indicate that the number of employees with mental health issues are increasing in our hospitals. That's an indication that there's something significantly wrong with our workplaces. Either there's a lot of stress and burnout, or working conditions, or compensation, especially now that people are struggling with many taxes. So if the taxes are eating into the employees' payment, they could be having these mental health issues. And that is the reason we have many employees visiting these health centers and hospitals. So we want them to participate in these wellness programs, including counseling. If you can afford it, counsel your employees on a regular basis. You can counsel them on performance, counsel them on illnesses, or counsel them on finances. Because we have a responsibility, a corporate social responsibility of taking care of our employees. Then second last for today, we have HR strategy map. And I've given key aspects related to that strategy map. That is, it is, by definition, it's a tool for aligning HR activities such as training, human resource planning, and others with the organizational goal. You align. Because we said earlier on, we are strategic partners, and therefore anything that we do in the HR department must be aligned. The purpose of using this map is to show how HR strategies contribute, the contribution. If you look at the targets that we have mentioned in the various KPIs, that's the contribution that we are making. So the purpose is to ensure that HR contributes either financially or in other ways like time to the corporate objectives. And then the other aspect related to strategy map is the HR functions, which are linked to the strategic goals. Needless to say, I've mentioned metrics. These are measures we use to track the effectiveness of those functions. And then integration, how do we ensure that the practices are part of the strategic plan? Because without this integration, we achieve a disintegration where things fall apart, if I may borrow from Chinua Achebe. And lastly is the contribution. What is the direct impact? If you go back to the balance scorecard, the direct impact could be financial perspective, customers' perspective, processes, and the growth. That is where we place our measurements in terms of HR strategy map. And then what are the components of this map? Is the vision. Vision is where the organization wants to be in the next 5 or 10 years. The mission is the purpose of existence. So the $6 million question we ask ourselves is whether our HR strategies are achieving this vision. If your vision is to become a market leader in the provision of healthcare services in East Africa, then HR strategy should be aligned to that, achieve that leadership position. For strategic objectives, and again, we need to align our objectives in HR with those corporate objectives. And then the functional areas, whatever we do in recruitment, should be related to the corporate strategy. And then performance measurements using the KPIs in order to to measure the success of the initiatives. I want to address, because I've addressed most of the linkages between business goals and HR strategies, feedback and adjustment, which is the last bullet down there, that we need feedback on how well we are doing. Without feedback, we don't know the direction in which we are going, either forward or backward or stagnating. We need to get feedback from this strategic map. And this feedback in the form of a report, which we should be giving either quarterly or annually to tell us whether we are succeeding or not. And if we are not succeeding, we take corrective measures. If we are succeeding, we maintain or improve. And then what are the benefits of having this strategy map? Is alignment to ensure that there is no drift. We focus, because when you focus, you are able to deliver superior results, unlike when you don't focus. That's why we tell even our children and people in our organization, you focus. The moment you lose focus, then you don't achieve much. On accountability, I say that we need to be clear on our targets. We need to be clear on our objectives, and we need to be accountable for what we do. And then communicate. Through communication, we are able to provide information in time that will, one, tell us about the outcomes, and two, tell us on where we need to improve. Another benefit is performance tracking. As we said from the beginning, the scorecard, the HR scorecard, is to track performance of the HR function. Tracking is continuous monitoring so that we do not deviate. So through a strategy map, we are able to track performance. What challenges do we face as HR managers in developing this scorecard? Alignment. Sometimes we don't align clearly or properly to the corporate strategies, either because of misinterpretation of the corporate strategy, two, because of poor cascading of the corporate strategies, and three, lack of training. The second challenge is identifying the relevant metrics, the measurements. Sometimes the measurements are too broad, which are not achievable, or two, the measurements are not accurate, and therefore we don't achieve much. Availability of data is what can also be a challenge, especially internally. For those of us who have not been keeping data or records, this can be a challenge. So if you don't have records related to many things, and I'm sure all of us have watched TV or have experienced where the Auditor General comes to your offices and you don't have a record of this and that, that becomes an audit query because you can't track performance. So to be on the safe side, you need to keep a clear record, relevant and accurate and up to date, so that as we measure our performance through this scorecard, we are able to track our progress. Resistance is where people don't like changes and they resist when this change is not benefiting them. But I'm sure you have developed ways of managing resistance, one, through training, two, through communication, and three, through involvement and consultation. And again, balancing quantitative and qualitative. I'm not saying that we focus mainly on quantitative. You must find a balance where 70% could be quantitative and 30% is qualitative. The other benefit, the other challenge is complexity of metrics. Depending on the industry in which you operate, the metrics can be very complex. And even tracking progress can be a serious problem. Setting realistic targets, that means that you did not do it right from the beginning, where you are setting smart objectives and targets. And lastly, resource constraints. No organization has unlimited resources. We are all constrained. So we need to use our resources optimally. And because of this scarcity of resources, we may not do a good job when it comes to developing this scorecard. Measuring long-term impact, because there are so many things that come into play, not just HR. HR might be one of them. It could be other aspects like technology or management themselves. Are they creating an environment? So you cannot possibly say that it's because of HR metrics. That is why we are succeeding. But a number of factors come into play, but we need to find out which one causes long-term impact. And then lastly, as I promised, there are emerging issues related to HR scorecard. We talk about data, and data. We need to have people who are qualified in data analytics so that we are able to track our performance and predict future trends. Secondly, it's about integrating technologies with what we do, and we don't have an option. For example, using HR information system is one way of ensuring that we have a scorecard that is accurate, verifiable, and measurable. The other one is employee experience focus. Now we are shifting. There is a shift from satisfaction, engagement, and rather traditional metrics of measuring performance to more subtle measurements like satisfaction, engagement, and well-being. Satisfaction is contentment, how happy are they? So if people are not happy, they are not likely to perform. For agility and adaptability, there's no question about that. We all need to be flexible even at the individual level. We need to assess whether our systems, processes, and policies are adaptable to our environment so that we don't become so rigid and we break in the process. The moment we break, it means that we are not doing well. And then alignment to business outcomes. And again, those of us who have done a course called Human Resource Business Partner, I'm sure you have come across this, that we are business partners. And our focus should be on these 4 key things. Profitability. How do HR managers contribute to profits? 2, customer satisfaction. How well are our customers satisfied, both internal and external? And 3, innovation. Our employees must be innovative. Or if they are not innovative, we create an environment where they can innovate. Lastly, real-time monitoring. Traditionally, because of the manual way in which we used to do our business, there was no real-time monitoring. Today, through the use of technology, we can do it real-time, that we know what is happening where and by who in real time. Diversity, again, we need to leverage on the various talents from different people. So we need to ensure that there is diversity and inclusivity in our workforce. Sustainability, I've heard people saying that I want to cut weight by avoiding carbohydrates. But the question you ask yourself, is that sustainable? So the sustainable way is to find a balance. So sustainability here, we are talking about work-life balance and corporate social responsibility, because whatever we do affects other people within and outside the organization. And then the focus on leadership. Those of us who have interacted with me before, I always say that the problem with any country or with any organization or family is a failure of leadership. Without effective leadership, then we fail. So we focus more on leadership development so that we have a crop of people who are 1, visionary, 2, strategic in thinking, and 3, who are transformative. So with this in mind, we need to develop our leadership through succession plans, through training, through mentorship, and through coaching. So if all these things are in place, then we are doing well in our scorecard. And then lastly, continuous improvement. Nothing stops until it stops. And if it stops, we need to wake them up or resuscitate them. We are doctors, we are medics in the HR department, and we are responsible for ensuring that things happen and happen for a good cause. So on that note, I come to the end of my presentation, and now I invite questions. If there are any, I will gladly answer them so that we can close our training. So ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open. You can ask your questions or give your comments. Hello? Any questions now? Otuoma, if you can hear me, any comment or question?
Mwalimu, I have no question. That was very good.
Thank you.
I really learned a lot. I'm happy.
Thank you very much. Nancy, if you are there, or Mamo?
No questions from my end. Very well executed.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thank you for the compliment. George Masharia? Emily, if you are there?
No questions from me, Mwalimu. Again, just to echo what my colleagues have just said, it was a well thought through presentation, very detailed, and explanations that you provided. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evelyn. I'm humbled. So if Mwangi does not have anything to say, I think we are ready to close.